past weekend, and Alex Golesh went on the record and said he was not pleased with his team's performance. Looked very sloppy on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Refreshing to hear from an Auburn head coach, or does that give you a little bit of concern?
I wouldn't say concern. I think Alex Golesh knows exactly what he's doing here with the fan base. I think if he would have come out and said anything else, the fans just would have gone crazy.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like they would have put the expectations through the roof. I think he's trying to temper those expectations a little bit. I'm sure they aren't game ready. You know, it's scrimmage 1. He said the same thing after the spring practice. So I feel like he's just trying to level expectations. Now, if he's saying this after the final scrimmage, then I would definitely say it's cause for concern.
When I pay attention to the preseason, it's pretty much general knowledge that an offense is usually going to be ahead of the defense at this point in the spring, because the offense, you can instill plays and stuff like that, and the defense, it takes a little bit of a longer time to get up to speed. It's just, it worries me a little bit that he's saying both sides of the ball need to be cleaned up, especially since its MO has been on the offensive side of things. But
yeah,
I want to play a soundbite from his press conference after the scrimmage, and I want to point out something interesting that he talks about. Let's take a listen to Alex Golesh.
Overall, I just told the guys, if we don't humble ourselves to get coached here the next 24 hours, there were some bright spots, and it's going to sound like coach talk. There were some bright spots, but there was also some pre-snap stuff that is not how you can function offensively. There was some bright spots on defense, and then there was some tackling stuff that didn't look like it looked like our second time tackling. And so we need a bunch of work tackling. We need a bunch of work perimeter blocking. We need a bunch of work pre-snap. We need a bunch of crowd noise work. I told the entire team, coaches, everybody, like, humble the heck out of yourselves here. Coach, take the coaching. I would walk out and say, overall, a sloppy day on both sides. Make an excuse and say, man, first scrimmage, first time really, like, we didn't look like a veteran team. We look like a team that has highs and lows and is emotional and rides with that, which is the complete opposite of what we want. So a lot to work on, like a ton to work on, and that's the truth on that.
What he just said at the very end stood out to me personally. A team that rides the highs and lows and is very emotional. He obviously said that's not something that Auburn wants to be, and I think he definitely has capabilities of correcting that. But does that not sound like the Auburn teams of the last few years? They would ride the highs of the highs, but then when they would hit the lows of the lows,
it would fall apart.
They would fall apart, and those Auburn teams in the last few years, were they not like very emotional, and that's how they would play on the field?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I wouldn't even go to the extent that they really even reached a high, and definitely not last year.
I mean, maybe being ranked after the Ball State game. Maybe that's it. That's probably the only high last year.
There was every close game, every potential big win, they came up short.
Yep.
So it's like they never even got the chance to experience the highs last year. And it really just felt like after their, I would say, third SEC loss, that team really just gave up. I mean, they weren't playing for anything anymore. It felt like, the star running back, captain of the team, quit, decided he wasn't going to play football with them anymore. Ever since that happened, it felt like Hugh Freeze just lost the locker room and there wasn't much to play for anymore. I don't think that's going to be the case with Alex Golesh. I don't see him losing the locker room, but like you mentioned, they definitely have some things they need to get together.
I think, you talk about Hugh Freeze losing the locker room a little bit, and I think that's definitely true. But once he did get fired, I think there was a little bit of a resurgency within the entire team. I
would agree.
They played a pretty good game against Vanderbilt, except for the defense, which,
which was crazy.
Seems like, it's always interesting because if there's one thing that like carries you throughout the season, they're always due for one game. It's like what I say about Josh Allen all the time.
Yeah.
The Bills were due for a game where Josh Allen lost it for them in the playoffs after losing it for Josh Allen in recent memory. Ever since that game, though, it seemed like that Auburn team actually had something to play for, in that being DJ Durkin. That Iron Bowl was a very close game, and it came down to an unfortunate turnover by Auburn late in the game that ultimately, maybe even kept Kalen DeBoer's job. Yeah, I don't know how things would have panned out after that.
That's true. No,
but
that wouldn't have been good for him.
It was a much different team after the firing, and it seemed like they all started to rally together.
For real.
Speaking of DJ Durkin, now he's back as the defensive coordinator. There are so many question marks about Byron Brown and this entire offense. That's basically just the USF offense coming into the SEC. How much of an advantage do you think it is going up against a DJ Durkin-led defense in practice to maybe, mute some of those concerns from the outsiders?
I think it's huge. I mean, we did just hear Alex Golesh say that some of them looked like it was their second time ever tackling. Yeah. So that brings a little confusion.
But again, I mean, it's early.
It is. And I mean, they aren't full on, tackling throughout fall camp. But it does surprise me a little bit because that was never the MO of the defense that we saw from Auburn last year. I mean, they were so excited to be on the field. They wanted to kill the offense every single time they got the chance to. So there's a little bit of confusion there, but I think they just have some things to get together. And I think it's huge for that offense, like you mentioned, to have, the best of the best defense go up against them in practice every day. I don't think you're going to get much better than that in the SEC. I mean, we'll see how things shake up this season, but if you're comparing to last season, you're not going to get much better than that. So that's going to be huge to just have that experience going into the first game.
They got 3 votes in the preseason AP poll, which, if you're stacking up the entirety of the SEC, that would put them at the 13th best team in the SEC.
Really?
Do you feel like that's fair? Because I've had my hopes for this Auburn team ever since the schedule came out and what I've heard from fall camp and even going back to the spring.
Yeah.
But 13th in the SEC, that seems a little bit low for that team.
I would agree with that. I would definitely, because I feel like they don't have as much question marks as a lot of these teams.
Yeah.
I mean, the only question mark is the fact that a lot of the offense played at USF last year instead of in the SEC. So I feel like that's where people are judging this team right now. But I just feel like with the chemistry, with the returners on defense, you got to assume they're going to be better than 13th.
I think it's part of that. And, I hate to say it, but in recent memory, it seems like, and Brett McMurphy at On3 just put out this morning the top 5 most overrated teams in the preseason. And number 1 was Auburn. So I almost feel like there's kind of like a hesitancy about an Auburn program. And it's unfortunate. I mean, I'm a Mets fan. So
it's fair.
I compare the Auburn Tigers and the New York Mets very closely to one another because, they want to be back in the national spotlight. They're wanting to hold on to hope. Mets were holding on to hope until they lost 12 games in a row, and now the season's over. Unless they do something crazy. Auburn, it seems like they're trying to find that team that can get them over the hump. It's been a rough couple of years here, but I don't know. I don't think you should punish a team that has less question marks around them than a team like we got to remember. USF had the second best offense by total yards per game last season. They played in the American, but there's something about an offense that knows its system very well.
Right. And an experienced quarterback.
Exactly. And I know the offense wasn't pretty against Florida by any means last year. They still managed to squeak out a win against the Gators in Gainesville. But still, I mean, this is going to be year 2 and 3 for most of these guys in Alex Golesh's system.
Yeah.
The step up.
Chaz Nimrod, who I just saw as a he's emerging as a wide receiver 1. He's been with Alex Golesh since Tennessee.
Yeah.
So that's 4 or 5 years in the system. I just feel like there is a lot of experience on that offense for sure.
And I mean, look at, please pump the brakes on what I'm about to say, but look at a team like Indiana last year.
Yeah.
They chose experience over pure talent.
Yeah.
And I think it worked out pretty good for the Hoosiers and just being in a system where you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You talked about Chaz Nimrod at the wide receiver position. That was a position that got hit heavy once Alex Golesh was named the next head coach. There's a mass exodus of the 2025 wide receiver room, but he brought in a bunch of guys from USF.
He sure
and
did.
now now he just added Trey Taylor from the portal, who's just granted an extra year of eligibility, coming over from the Troy Trojans. So
wow,
I know it's a little bit murky right now with so many pieces at the wide receiver position that could be the top two options for Byron Brown. But how much do you think the depth is going to help at a position like this for Alex Golesh?
I think it will absolutely help. And those guys that they brought over from UCF had huge years last season. Like, they weren't just average receivers. They put up some crazy numbers. So, I think anytime you can get depth in that position, it's definitely going to help. But I feel pretty confident with, your top 2-3 wide receivers that you have at Auburn.
Final thing before we get out of here, I wanted to take a look at the schedule now that we have the preseason AP top 25 rankings out. And, it's so weird and interesting that the early part of the season could allow for a little bit of growth. We've talked about that Florida game before and how crucial that game is going to be.
Yeah.
But there is going to be a stretch where that Tennessee, Georgia, Ole Miss, LSU, those 4 games all in a row.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, Alabama has kind of like the same schedule in a way during that middle portion of the season.
Yeah.
So, that looks brutal. I don't know what LSU is going to look like at that point in the year. We really don't know what Tennessee is going to look like at that point in the season. We have a pretty good gauge on what Georgia and Ole Miss will be. But, if Auburn wants to make the CFP this year, it seems like they definitely have to go 3-1 in that stretch.
Oh, they absolutely do. And even that Florida game that they're opening SEC play with, that's going to be a huge one. A lot of people have it feels like more faith in the Florida team this year, which surprises me a little bit. I think it's just faith in John Summerall as a head coach. But I think we're going to know in that game who this Auburn team is going to be.
It's so weird because I think Florida received the second most votes that did not get ranked inside the top 25. I think Clemson were ranked. I think Clemson had like 116 and 119 off the top of my head. Then it was Florida in the 50 range. So, a lot of people are high on this Florida team. And again, it goes back to that. It's just a little bit weird to me because like Alabama and like Tennessee, we don't know who their quarterback is going to be. And Aaron Philo and Tramel Jones don't necessarily have the experience that gives me faith in, this is going to be a great offense this year. I know Jaden Baugh is back, and I know they have some really good wide receivers in that room.
Yeah.
But, if they can't get the ball to them, then it's just like you're just sitting there. Like, hey, here's my flashy toy. I almost said Auburn kind of last year, but I don't want to, go on hate on the good old Auburn Tigers. But still, it's going to be interesting. And I'm a little bit confused on why Florida is as high as they are. But, you got to play the games. This is all preseason. I think I did do the math. There was 12 teams last year were ranked inside the top 25 that did not make it inside the top 25 at the end of the season.
Okay.
So